Okay, let's call the committee to order if we could. Declarations of pecuniary interest on municipal conflict of interest. I don't see any. All right. Any requests to remove items from the consent agenda? There are a number of items there. No? Motion to approve them then? Moved by Councillor Jowett, seconded by Councillor Nowak. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We'll move on to the regular agenda, and the first one is the consumption and treatment services operations and construction update. And we'll have Dr. Wayne give us some opening remarks.
Thank you. Good morning, councillors. I am pleased to introduce the report from Public Health, providing an update on the early impact of the consumption and treatment services site, and an update on the construction and funding of the permanent CTS site. In the report, you will see that client visits ranged from approximately 700 to 1,000 a month, serving an average of 129 unique individuals per month. In the first 3 months of operation, staff responded to 40 overdoses. During that time, there were no fatal overdoses at the site and no 911 overdose calls to paramedic services. The report also highlights that staff made many referrals to mental health services, primary care, and treatment services. And where possible, staff worked to ensure clients felt supported in accessing those services by facilitating their connection with them. Community engagement continues to be prioritized by Public Health in partnership with Sanguine so that together we can understand any unanticipated impacts related to the site and implement strategies to address them. To that end, members of the Community Advisory Committee, which include members of the BIA, the surrounding neighborhood, and the neighboring apartment building, have not shared any concerns related to the CTS site to date. Construction and funding. We are also pleased to share that construction of the permanent site will begin mid-April. It is anticipated the first floor will be ready for occupancy towards the end of July. The provincial government has approved $1,021,000 in one-time funds towards construction, furniture, and equipment. Further, annualized based funding of just over $1.5 million per year has been approved by the province for the ongoing operation of the consumption and treatment services site. In closing, we wish to recognize the contributions of Sanguine Health Centre. Their staff have worked diligently to ensure the site is a welcoming and safe space. On a daily basis, they support clients by referral to social services, treatment, and mental health supports. Staff of the CTS have been exceptional in their ability to respond to difficult situations in a calm and caring manner. Public Health continues to work with Sanguine to ensure staff are supported and that the site is working as well as possible. Thank you, and we'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Wang. Just some clarification. You had said construction will be finished on the first floor by the end of July?
That's correct.
The first floor, or is that it? There's more construction after that on the second floor, or will be fully operational at the end of July?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, good. Like a fully operational Death Star. Okay, good. Well, it's a quote from a great movie. Councillor Vrbanovic.
Thanks very much, Chair Lorentz. And I want to begin by just thanking staff for the great job that they've done in implementing this facility. I think we, while obviously all of us had concerns in varying degrees, we knew that this was going to make a difference. And when you look at the Table 1, and you look at the two rows of zeros across the board in terms of November through January average and total, I don't think you can ask for a better result than that to begin with, because that's fundamentally at the core of why we did this. It was to stop fatal overdoses as much as we can in terms of this facility, and make sure people can continue to use as part of their journey to hopefully get to a point where they can ultimately choose some of the other wraparound services that are made available to them, and get on a better path in life going forward. I think we'd be remiss if we also didn't thank the province for stepping up both with capital funding and operating funding. I think we need to be honest. This is not an issue that has necessarily been an easy one for this government or some members in this government, and yet at the end they've chosen to do the right thing, I believe, in terms of not just us but other municipalities as well, and it takes courage to do that, and I think we have to acknowledge them appropriately in that regard. As we go forward, I know some of the success that we've had in terms of it being relatively problem-free has just been because of the resources and how we've resourced this, in terms of us, in terms of our partners, the security pieces, and so on. Are we looking at sort of keeping much of that intact as we go into the permanent mechanism? And while I recognize some of the security pieces may change, I think it's important that we still have some mechanism there. So I'm wondering if we can touch on that.
I'd like to pass it to Karen quickly to answer. Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I think that there are a lot of lessons learned as a result of having the opportunity to have the interim site under operation. And I think one of the large successes was the operator, Sanguine Health, who's done an excellent job, and also the regional security people that were assigned to the facility. They've built an excellent partnership. And I think it has worked out well, both for the organizations, the people that are using the service, as well as our partners in the surrounding area. We have also met regularly with City of Kitchener security staff, our regional security staff, and police. And I think having that open communication has also helped us in approaching this in a very positive way.
Okay, great. Just one question. Do we have a sense in December, our numbers went up significantly and then they kind of leveled off after that? Do we know what happened in December? Like what was kind of different?
It's difficult to say, but we know these kinds of fluctuations are what we can expect to see. And they can be, due to factors such as changes in the drug supply.
Okay. And I guess, we know Christmas is a difficult time for people that are often dealing with life's challenges, and so that might explain some of it as well. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Vin. Sure, no problem. Thanks for the good questions. Councillor Jowett?
Thank you, through the chair. I don't want, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, just want to make sure that we reiterate for some very strong reasons. My colleagues are not here, but we met with the executive director of OPHI, and it would take very little to mobilize OPHI as the harm reduction supplier for Cambridge. And one of the challenges before us is that OPHI is in danger of losing their space at the food bank, and they have a unique marketplace. They serve our LGBTQ community, and I'd be very concerned about us losing that, not only the relationships, but the expertise. And so I just want to put it before this group yet again that that is a preferred supplier in Cambridge for many reasons that have been mentioned many times, and want it to go on record again that it has been brought up. Dr. Wang, I really do appreciate all the work that you've put into this file, and I'm just hoping that we can just remain cognizant of that, and perhaps you can even have a sit down with the executive director, and because the barriers are that we will lose this expertise in Cambridge.
Yes, for sure. We'd be willing to sit down.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Councillor Foxton.
Through the chair, well done, staff. I know we were not easy to deal with to come to this conclusion, and the numbers far exceed my expectations. And if you look at the number of referrals and also the number of individual cases, you're hitting 80%. I think that works out to just about 85%, which is well done as well, which is what we had all really hoped for. And my question is there still a lot of needles around and a lot of drug use outside it, or has the individuals gravitated to the center?
No, needle debris has actually not been an issue around the site. That is, we do have regular patrols. And Karen, do you have any details you'd like to add about that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I think that generally during the hours of operation of the site, certainly City of Kitchener staff have noticed a decrease in drug use in City Hall and in the surrounding area. I think there are still issues outside of operating hours, and I think we'll continue to see issues that we'll need to put our heads together and respond to on a regular basis in parts of the city. But we've got a good, strong, solid foundation and some really good services to offer going forward.
Thank you, and that's exactly what I wanted to hear, is that we're constantly reevaluating and moving up, and we needed a test case like this to say, hey, it's not perfect, but we're getting there. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Councillor Shantz.
Thank you, and my thanks and congratulations to staff as well. When something comes together like this it means there's been a lot of good planning and thought put into it, and so very much appreciate that, and also the collaboration between the region, the city, the police, Sanguine. I think collaboration all around. You talked about lessons learned and about open communication. My question was going to be, what challenges do you see going forward? Is there, what challenges do you see going forward?
Who would like to answer that? Karen?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I think anytime you're dealing with something that doesn't have like a solid type of base to come from. So from that, I mean, the drug supply is always changing. The impact of those drugs on individuals is changing. The behaviors we see and need to manage are changing. So that is a piece of it. I think that I would probably frame it more as an opportunity than a challenge. It's allowed us to really engage with the immediate neighborhood and other stakeholders. So we are able to really frame and ensure that our evaluation is looking at impact in multiple areas. And I'm thinking that will also allow us to see how we can move this forward and perhaps identify a few more challenges as we move along. But we're certainly well positioned to assess what those challenges are and to work together with our partners to put together options to meet those challenges.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor, or Chair Redman, I should say.
Thank you, Chair Lorentz. I think this is a great report, and really want to sort of underscore some of the things that Councillor Shantz said, and that's the partnership with people in the community. No one level of government is ever going to be able to address this situation. And a CTS in a long-term medical center, as this will turn into be, will never meet everybody's needs, but it is doing what we hoped it would do, and that's being a good community partner. I think the partnership we have with the community, the fact that Sanguine has been a caring, open operator that already had relationships with these people on the margins is really important. I know from the Waterloo Regional Police perspective, there hasn't been an increase of calls. In a lot of ways, it has sort of stabilized activity that was already happening in the street. And I just want to underscore something that Shirley Hilton said at a meeting yesterday, and that is there is no buffer zone. People are still operating under the assumption that there is a 150, 200 meter buffer zone where police will not enforce the law. The reality is they do enforce the law. There is no free zone, and people need to be reminded of that. I also want to give a shout out to Kitchener City Council, because it was with their support that we chose 150 Duke. And I also want to reassure people in Cambridge that we are trying to take people who are on the margins and allow them a gateway to a better life, a more involved life with the community, and for success in finding rehabilitation should they choose that route. We would never, the public health I'm sort of speaking on behalf of, but it would not be consistent with that philosophy to go into a community that wasn't welcoming this resource. There are many tools in our kit that we can use. Should there be an opportunity for Cambridge to enter into this, it would be something that would have to have the support of the community as well as Cambridge Council. So I just want to give a shout out to our staff in public health and all of our partners that made this successful and has indeed prevented 40 overdoses from being fatal. And also to underscore Karen Quigley-Hobbs' point that this is always a moving target, and we don't know what's in the drug supply, so we don't know what disaster waits around the corner. But this is one of the best strategies that we can take to deal with that when it comes. So hats off to everybody who's involved in this successful launch.
Chair Redman, thank you for those thoughtful comments. I really appreciate it. Good for you. Councillor Galloway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's really good to see this report, and confirms a lot of our hopes, at least, as to the success of this particular project. I think when we go back in time and we look at what we did with the integrated drug strategy, and harm reduction was an important element of that, and then a CTS is an important element in harm reduction, and it did take some courage of this council to move forward in this regard. Some communities have not, and it's really good to see that it has performed as it was intended in terms of harm reduction and saving lives. Notwithstanding, there have been a number of overdoses at the center. Those overdoses likely, and many more of them, would likely have taken place elsewhere in the community where the supports and assistance would not have been readily available, and we don't know what the outcomes would have been of those particular incidents. So it's still early days, but the numbers, the statistics, the number of people that are using it, and and coming up, we have some wraparound services now. We'll have more wraparound service when the permanent site is built. It's not easy doing these things. We had quite a debate, not so much on the merits of a CTS, but the location of the CTS in Kitchener. It seems to have worked out very well, and I think that the community is well served by what we did, and hopefully those kinds of results will continue on indefinitely.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Erb.
Thank you, Chair Lorentz, excuse me.
Whatever. It depends where you live.
The Wellesley accent. Thank you for a good news report in what's a challenging file, and for your diligence in making this all happen. What I'm encouraged by in this is the number of visits. And to me, I hope it's something that continues, even though it's an issue that we would like to see decrease, and that we are seeing this as a healthcare issue. And by more people coming, we're removing the stigma from it, and people are coming and getting treatment as if they would for any other kind of healthcare thing. So I think that in itself, to me, is reassuring and what we were hoping to accomplish. Building on the wraparound services is important, but clearly removing the stigma so we can treat this as a healthcare issue is very important. And thank you for enabling that to happen.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Armstrong?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Good news stories are always great, and I really appreciate the fact that the reassurance of the wisdom of tough decisions made at this table. I mean, the ION is one, this is another one. But I also want to extend that the fact that the wisdom is far beyond just this table, not just the table, but staff, but within the city and the people that support this. So it's always great to have your tough decisions supported and showing that the wisdom does prevail sometimes.
Very good, thank you. Councillor Vrbanovic, I'll give you the second last word.
Okay, thanks. And it was really just a follow-up to Councillor Foxton's question around, I think it was Councillor Foxton, around the issues around there in general. And what I would say is, I mean, this has certainly helped some of it. I think the other thing that helped, and thanks to the region for partnering with the city on this, is funding the day program at Ray of Hope, which has started. And they are seeing during the afternoons upwards of 70+ people coming based on the numbers that they shared with us yesterday, and going up. And I think that's exactly what we expected. Many of them are availing themselves of the services that they've been able to partner there. Some healthcare, some around mental health, and so on, and all of that is starting to play a significant difference, because folks now have a place to go during the daytime. I mean, we still, welcome many of them at City Hall during the day. We haven't necessarily seen those numbers change, but the players change. So I think some of moving, it's giving people some viable options, which we've heard is important as well.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to make a couple of comments as well, if I can. First of all, I think this could not have been possible unless we had the kind of staff that we've had. You talk about can-do. Every time there was an issue, our staff were on top of it and dealing with it. Last term, I was chair of community services, and we went through a lot of stuff. We had a number of different locations that we wanted to talk about. We were in the middle of an election campaign. We were getting, I know I was, and I'm sure other candidates as well, bombarded by everybody, every neighborhood that there was even a potential site to go into. And some of that stuff was pretty tough. So I think we came out on the right side. I mean, we've had many, and look at Councillor Vrbanovic, many discussions on many different locations and many different ideas, which I appreciated. But I really appreciate the council, the city of Kitchener, getting behind this, because it really was, I think in my mind, for them, a leap of faith. I don't think they had the opportunity to do some of the tours that we did down in Toronto, looking at, is it South Riverside? I always want to say South Riverdale because of Archie, but and I think that model, we looked how they did things there, and that's kind of the model that we've that we've been working with, and including patrols in the morning to early morning for needles and all of those things, and really talking to all of the partners that are out there, the neighbors, the KDBA, the city, anybody, the police, having those kinds of services made this look like it was a seamless operation. But I give everybody so much credit because this is not easy. So it's a great model, and I think it only can get better. I think we have to keep our guard up and make sure that, every day goes smoothly. But we certainly are on the right track, and I suspect other municipalities are probably going to come when we're finished, our build-out, look at our facility and say, boy, this is the kind of model that we would like to have in our community. I would hope nobody would have to duplicate this, but the reality is it's happening everywhere, and I think we've done a very good job of handling it. Now, one of the things that I did talk to Dr. Wang about is, if anyone on this council is interested in having a quick tour of the facility, I think our staff can kind of squeeze you in maybe before or whatever. But I had an opportunity to go through it a couple of months ago, and it's a quick tour, but it's very informative, and it really gives you a good snapshot of how the operation works. So we'll leave it at that. And Councillor Vrbanovic, you're prepared to move the recommendation? Seconder? Second by Councillor Erb. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, thank you. Now the next item, I think that was on our addendum, right? Was the collaborative municipal funding for key cultural institutions. And there's a recommendation there. I don't know if any discussion. Someone want to move the recommendation? Councillor Foxton, second by Councillor Armstrong. I'm sorry, you have a question? Okay. No problem. Councillor Galloway.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a really interesting report, and I thank staff for putting it together. And of course, the broader issues, of course, the four major cultural institutions. But we drilled down quite a bit into the museum, which was, of course, the subject of a special study funded by the region and the two Kitchener-Waterloo, the cities of Kitchener-Waterloo. And the findings of that report are quite revealing and of some concern, of course. So I don't want to get into a long discussion on this, but on page 48, the conclusion of the consultant is that the municipal support for this particular institution is not underfunded. That in comparison to other museums across Canada, municipal funding is appropriate, at least at this point in time. And of course, that's contrary to what we've been told on a regular basis, that municipal funding was not sufficient and was not in keeping with elsewhere in the country. So it's really good to see that an independent third party has given us that information. But in that light, what does concern me, and the question I have, Mr. Chair, is to what extent the board of the museum has engaged on this and are prepared to deal with the issues. Because on page 37, it indicates the board has not articulated a plan for sustainability beyond December 2019. Well, that is just recently. And I suppose there's been more time for their board to deal with it, and maybe they have. I'd be interested to what extent the board is engaged and dealing with the recommendations of the report. Okay. If they've accepted the report, I mean, in the first place, and then, and to what extent they're moving forward.
Okay, Mr. Rouget.
Through you, Chair Lorentz, there have been extensive conversations with the board on this study right through the process. The museum was responsible for contributing much of the information that formed the backbone for the report itself, and a number of conversations took place between the board and the consultant and the stakeholders as well. I would say that the museum has agreed to the conditions which for the funding, which are outlined in the report, and so at this stage, our impression is that in fact they are committed to working their way through this. Helen may have some additional information because she's been closer to the details.
Okay.
That pretty much summarizes it, yes. So we have been, had a very recent conversation with the museum staff, and they are working very closely with their board to look at their programming and all the other recommendations that were laid out in the report. So come June 2020, that's going to be the end of their fiscal year this year, and then they will provide us with their financial statements and a variety of other reporting information, and so we'll be checking to see whether things are progressing. And that's the moment in time when we'll be able to really get a sense of how much progress is being made, but we're feeling optimistic at the moment.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add further, not to respond necessarily, but the museum is a great facility, and I just don't want to see it in jeopardy and in a crisis kind of situation, and then lose it to the community. And I think the blueprint that's been put together by the third-party consultant hopefully will give the board some clear direction on how they can proceed and make sure that it continues to flourish and benefit our community as it currently does.
Great. Well, I know my wife went on a trip with our granddaughter yesterday as part of a school tour, and my granddaughter was quite upset she couldn't get to the second or third floor. Now I have to go back and show her because it was only on the first floor. But it was a great experience for them. And I'm sure everybody's aware that when it was first approved, it was a children's museum. When I was on Kitchener Council, we approved that. So yeah, it's great for our downtown, and it's a great report. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor then? Opposed? That's carried. Information and correspondence, I don't see any. Other business? Next, I'm sorry? Councillor Strickland?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering if Dr. Wong can give council an update next week on COVID-19 and what's happening in the region and what steps are being taken, and also just reinforce what the public needs to know. On the weekend, I had several communications from people who were concerned about not being able to buy a mask, and I know that many retail outlets no longer have respirators or surgical masks, and I'm not the one to be saying to them, well, go check the website. Public health is recommending that you don't need to wear a mask unless you're being exposed. So I think that in this situation, you can't have too much information for the public. And if we could get an update on what's happening, there seems to be more and more cases in Ontario, 3 more last night. There's 27 in Ontario now. So I think it's important for the community to get an update, and that would be appropriate to happen at council next week.
Will do.
I would
Thank
agree.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Do we, are we doing media releases or status?
There are regular requests from the media, and we're providing the status requests as they come in, and we do have a web page on which we post the latest information. But this is an additional means of communication. We'd be very happy to provide that update as well.
And how do we get the message out to people that don't go to our website or even know it exists or have access to it? So we are doing media releases, and we're hoping the media.
Yeah, we are responding to the media. So we regularly give media answers to their questions, as well as
doing our own updates and releases.
Yeah, we have, for example, a bulletin that goes out to our many community and municipal stakeholders, giving them the latest status updates.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, so the next meeting is March 24th. Motion to go into closed. Councillor Vrbanovic, Councillor Shantz, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We're adjourned. Motion to adjourn as well. Councillor Chair Redman, Councillor Foxton, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Is there anything else, Tim? No, that's it. Okay.